How's it going, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Geeky Gentleman, the podcast for all your geeky needs, fashion, and lifestyle tips, all rolled into one fantastically packaged podcast. Today's podcast, we're talking about the Inhumans, and how Marvel might be getting ready to reboot them after the disastrous ABC TV series. Alrighty then, enough said, let's jump right into the podcast. Okay, Inhumans. So for those of you who don't know, the Inhumans was announced by Marvel back in 2014 as a film within the MCU. But then the film was dropped and was made into this horrendous ABC show in 2017 and had this weird theatrical run for like 2 weeks. It was really odd and it was bad, so bad. So if you haven't seen it, don't worry, because that show was shit. It was so bad, and I'm pretty sure Marvel just wants everyone to forget about it. And it was kind of a real bummer because the Inhumans have such a rich storyline and some very popular characters like Medusa, Crystal, Black Bolt. There's so many good characters in there that I can't believe they actually screwed it up. Now, the minute I heard that it was going to be announced as an ABC TV series, I knew it was dead in the water. Because, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I tried so hard to give it a chance, but it's just storylines like this require so much more of a budget than what is given just for TV, so it's just always going to be bad. And you can't have Medusa with her crazy hair flying around with a TV budget. It just doesn't work, and they knew that, which is why they frickin' shaved her head. Now, back in 2016, Kevin Feige said that the Inhumans could certainly become part of the discussion regarding film ideas for the MCU in 2020 and 2021. Currently, reports are floating around that the Inhumans may be rebooted. So let's see how this could play out with what Marvel already has planned. The Eternals. Now, the Eternals film is due to come out in November 2020 in Phase 4 of the MCU. Seeing how this will be our first glimpse into the Eternals, we can assume we will get a look on how they came to be. In the comic books, the Eternals were created by the Celestials, who've already been sprinkled throughout the MCU. But the Eternals weren't the only thing the Celestials toyed with. They even created multiple branches of humanity. In particular, the expansion of the human potential in the form of the X gene. In other words, mutants. Now, could one of the other branches of humans that they toyed with become the Inhumans? Either way, this would be setting up the foundation of mutants and Inhumans and explain why they were eventually able to develop superhuman abilities. But perhaps maybe the Celestials only set up mutants, in which case we have to move into Phase 5 of the MCU. Captain Marvel 2. The first Captain Marvel continued to expand our knowledge and understanding of the Kree. For half of the film, they even had Carol believing that they had bestowed her superpowers, of which we found out that they were actually lying. But do you know who the Kree did bestow powers on? The Inhumans! Now, in the comic books, the Kree did experiments on early humans in hopes of creating an army to help them in their fight against the Skrulls. The results of their experiments were the super-powered Inhumans. So, hear me out. Captain Marvel 2 is slated to be in Phase 5 of the MCU, which will be sometime after 2021. In this film, we can see how the Kree are able to enhance the abilities of humans and get our glimpse into the Inhumans. The Kree War seems to be a huge factor in the Captain Marvel franchise, so it would make sense that we continue learning of the Kree throughout the franchise of Captain Marvel, which moves me to my next point. Miss Marvel. An important note to cover is that Marvel also announced a Disney Plus show called Miss Marvel. The show will debut sometime in 2022 possibly, and will focus on the character of Kamala Khan. This is important because Kamala Khan is an Inhuman. So in theory, sometime before this Disney Plus show premieres, Marvel will have to have had established the Inhumans in some way so that audiences know what is going on. And they can assume we haven't watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Sorry, Daisy. Having the Captain Marvel franchise explore more of the Kree involvement in creating the Inhumans would provide a reason to have Carol and Kamala connected within the MCU, seeing how Captain Marvel is Kamala's idol and the reason she chose the Miss Marvel as her codename. It would also set up the foundation to explore where Inhumans came from, and when they start popping up within the MCU, we wouldn't need too much of a backstory to set them up. Speaking of popping up, I wouldn't put it past Marvel to perhaps throw in some of the royal family of the Inhumans, such as Black Bolt, Medusa, or Crystal, in the Miss Marvel series as sort of a backdoor lead-in into their own film franchise. So unless Marvel is planning to recon Kamala as a mutant, I'm pretty sure the Inhumans will be coming sooner rather than later in the MCU. And there you have it, guys. A rundown on how Marvel can possibly be setting up the Inhumans for a reboot. Are you excited about the Inhumans finally coming back into the MCU, or would you rather Marvel just focus on mutants? Let me know. Thanks again for listening to another episode of The Geeky Gentleman. Don't forget to subscribe and rate this podcast, that always makes me happy. Feel free to drop me a DM on Instagram. I am at DriftingDecal. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the rebooted Inhumans. And if you want more content from me, feel free to visit my blog at www.driftingdudes.com. And until our next podcast adventure, I will talk at you guys later. Bye.